Welcome to another soothing journey through history. Tonight, we're stepping into the opulent, golden world of ancient Egypt in 40 BC, a land of pharaohs, palaces, and the legendary beauty of Queen Cleopatra VII. Imagine spending your day trying to look like a goddess with milk baths, kohl eyeliner, and honey masks, only to have everything go hilariously wrong, from runaway donkeys to smudged makeup. Over the next, we'll follow Cleopatra through her chaotic beauty routine, filled with mishaps that even a queen can't escape. If you're ready to trade your modern comforts for a peek into this glamorous yet funny day, settle in, dim the lights, and maybe turn on a fan for that soft hum. And if you enjoy this journey, give the video a like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from. Now, let's brush on some kohl and step into the past. It's just before dawn in the year 40 BC, and you're Cleopatra VII, the dazzling queen of Egypt, waking up in your luxurious palace in Alexandria. Your bed is a masterpiece of gold and ebony, draped with linen as fine as a spider's web. But even a queen can't escape the occasional mosquito bite. You stretch, groaning as the first rays of sunlight sneak through the alabaster windows, muttering to yourself, "Another day of ruling," and looking divine. Ra, give me strength. Your golden headdress is on a stand nearby, glinting like the sun itself, a reminder of the image you must maintain as a living goddess. You clap your hands, summoning your servants, who rush in with trays of perfumes, oils, and a fan made of ostrich feathers. "Prepare my bath," you command, your voice regal but a bit groggy. You're not exactly a morning person. Your favorite servant, Iris, bows low, but in her haste, she trips over your pet cat, Bastet, knocking over a jar of rose-scented perfume. The room fills with the overpowering scent, and you sneeze, glaring at Iris. "By the gods, Iris, are you trying to drown me in flowers before breakfast?" you snap. But your tone softens as Bastet purrs and rubs against your leg. You scoop her up, muttering, "At least someone here knows how to behave." You slip into a simple linen robe, your bare feet padding across the cool stone floor as you head to the bathing chamber. Today is a big day. You're hosting a banquet for Roman envoys, and you need to look every bit the divine queen they expect. But as you'll soon discover, beauty in ancient Egypt comes with its fair share of chaos. You arrive at the bathing chamber, a stunning room with a sunken pool tiled in lapis lazuli, its walls painted with lotus flowers and ibis birds. Your servants have prepared a milk bath, a luxury you're famous for. Rumor has it you bathe in donkey milk to keep your skin soft and radiant. "Make sure it's fresh," you order, settling into the pool as Iris pours the milk from a clay jar. The warm milk feels divine, and you close your eyes, imagining how radiant you'll look at the banquet, until a loud braying noise shatters your peace. You open your eyes to see a donkey, the very one whose milk you're bathing in, charging into the chamber, dragging a servant behind it. "What in the name of Hathor?" you exclaim, as the donkey, spooked by a stray cat, kicks over the remaining milk jar and bolts out the door. Milk splashes everywhere, soaking Iris, who slips and lands in the pool with a splash, her kohl eyeliner smudging down her face like a sad raccoon. "Iris, you were supposed to milk the donkey, not bring it to my bath," you shout, trying to sound regal while covered in milk. Iris scrambles out, muttering apologies, and chases after the donkey, leaving you to laugh despite yourself. "Well," you mutter, "at least I'll smell like a dairy goddess." You rinse off the milk with water from the Nile, brought in by another servant, Charmian, who's trying not to giggle at the chaos. The bath isn't quite the luxurious start you'd hoped for, but you're Cleopatra, you'll make it work. You step out, wrapping yourself in a linen towel, and move on to the next step of your beauty routine, hoping for fewer animal interruptions. Next, you move to your dressing chamber, a room adorned with golden mirrors and alabaster vases. You sit on a cushioned stool, and Charmian brings a tray of makeup, kohl eyeliner, malachite eyeshadow, and red ochre for your lips. Kohl is your signature look, a black paste made from galena and soot, used to line your eyes and protect them from the sun's glare. Make me look like a goddess, you tell Charmian, who nods eagerly and hands you a small stick to apply the kohl. You dip the stick into the kohl and carefully draw a line along your upper eyelid, extending it into a dramatic wing, the look that says, "I'm a queen, fear me." But the kohl is thicker than usual, and your hand slips, smudging a black streak across your cheek. "By Isis, this looks like a child's drawing," you exclaim, grabbing a cloth to wipe it off, only to smear it further. Now you look like you've been crying charcoal. Charmian stifles a laugh, and you glare at her. "Are you laughing at your queen, Charmian?" She shakes her head quickly, but her eyes betray her amusement. You try again, but a sudden gust of wind from an open window blows dust into your eye, making you blink at the worst moment. The kohl stick jabs your eyelid, and you yelp, dropping it onto your lap, where it leaves a black streak on your pristine linen robe. "This is a disaster," you groan, tossing the stick aside. Charmian, ever loyal, steps in to fix the mess, carefully reapplying the kohl while you mutter, "If ruling Egypt were as hard as this, I'd have given up long ago." With your kohl finally in place, though one eye looks slightly more dramatic than the other, you move on to a honey mask, a trick you learn to keep your skin glowing. Honey is a luxury in Egypt, prized for its healing properties, and you've ordered a fresh batch from the royal apiary. Iris brings a small jar of golden honey, and you scoop out a generous amount, smearing it across your face. "This will make me shine like Ra himself," you say, closing your eyes as the sticky sweetness settles on your skin. But honey is trickier than it looks. It starts to drip, sliding down your neck and into your hair, tangling in the strands like a golden web. "Iris, it's dripping!" you shout, trying to catch the gooey mess, but your hands are sticky too, and you end up smearing it everywhere. Iris rushes to help, but in her panic, she knocks the jar over, spilling the rest of the honey onto the floor. "By the gods, Iris, now I'm a walking beehive," you exclaim as a fly buzzes in, attracted by the sweet scent, and lands on your nose. You swat at it, only to smear more honey across your face, and Iris bursts into giggles, earning a glare from you. Charmian brings a wet cloth to clean you up, and you mutter, "If Julius Caesar could see me now, he'd sail back to Rome faster than a Nile crocodile." But you can't help laughing at the absurdity of it all. A queen covered in honey, swatting flies like a commoner. You rinse off the mask, hoping the next step of your routine will go more smoothly. With your face finally clean, though still slightly sticky, you move to the throne room to practice a new dance for the banquet. You've heard the Romans love a good performance, and you want to impress them with your grace and charm. You've chosen a flowing blue robe with golden embroidery, its sleeves long and elegant, perfect for a dance inspired by the movements of the Nile. "I'll be as graceful as a heron," you declare, striking a dramatic pose as Iris and Charmian clap in encouragement. You start the dance, swaying your hips and raising your arms like the river's waves, imagining the Romans' awe at your elegance. But the robe is heavier than you expected, and as you spin, the sleeve catches on your golden bracelet and tears with a loud rip. You freeze, staring at the dangling fabric, and Charmian gasps, "Oh no, my queen." Iris tries to stifle a laugh, but it escapes as a snort, and you glare at her. Is this funny, Iris? Your queen looks like a torn papyrus scroll. You try to salvage the dance, but the torn sleeve flaps awkwardly, and you trip over your own feet, landing on a cushion with a thud. The servants rush to help, and you mutter, "Perhaps I'll stick to ruling instead of dancing." You laugh despite yourself, deciding to change into a simpler robe for the banquet. No more spins for today. Back in the dressing chamber, you move on to your lips, deciding to try a new shade of red ochre. A pigment made from crushed earth, mixed with animal fat to create a vibrant lipstick. "This will make my smile irresistible," you say, dipping a small brush into the mixture and carefully applying it to your lips. The color is bold, a fiery red that matches your royal status, and you admire your reflection in the golden mirror, feeling every bit the queen. But the mixture is greasier than expected, and as you smile to test the look, the ochre slips off your lips and onto your cheek, leaving a bright red streak. "Oh, for the love of Amun," you exclaim, grabbing a cloth to wipe it off. But the grease spreads further, making you look like you've been slapped with a paintbrush. Iris tries to help, but she accidentally bumps the tray, sending the ochre pot flying. It lands on your lap, staining your new robe with a red splotch. "Iris, are you trying to make me look like a tomato?" You snap, but your tone is more amused than angry. Charmian brings water to clean you up, and you laugh. If Mark Antony saw me now, he'd think I've been in a battle with a paint pot. You settle for a lighter shade of ochre, applied more carefully this time, and decide to move on before any more makeup disasters strike. Finally, it's time for the banquet. You've managed to salvage your look. Your kohl is dramatic. Your lips are a subtle red, and your new robe is free of honey and ochre stains. You enter the banquet hall, a stunning room with golden columns and a long table laden with roasted duck, figs, and bowls of barley soup. The Roman envoys are already seated, their red togas a stark contrast to the Egyptian splendor, and they rise to bow as you take your place at the head of the table. You smile, radiating confidence, and begin to speak, welcoming the envoys with your legendary charm. "Friends from Rome, let us feast as allies under the gaze of Ra," you say, gesturing to the table. But as you lean forward to pick up your spoon, your heavy golden necklace, a gift from your father, Ptolemy XII, slips off your neck and lands with a splash in your bowl of soup. The room falls silent, the Romans staring in shock as broth drips down your robe. You freeze, then laugh, trying to salvage the moment. "It seems the gods wanted to bless my soup with gold." The Romans chuckle nervously, and Iris rushes to retrieve the necklace, slipping on the wet floor in the process and landing with a thud. You wave off the incident with a regal smile, but inside, you're mortified. "First the donkey, now the soup. Hathor must be laughing at me today," you mutter under your breath. The banquet continues, and you charm the envoys with your wit. But the memory of this soup-soaked necklace lingers in your mind, a reminder that even queens have their off days. After the banquet, you retire to the palace gardens, a serene oasis by the Nile, where lotus flowers bloom and the air smells of jasmine. The Romans have been charmed, despite the soup incident, and you've secured their alliance for another season. You sit on a golden chair, Iris and Charmian fanning you with ostrich feathers, their earlier mishaps forgiven. The night is cool, a welcome relief after the day's heat, and the stars glitter above like the jewels in your crown. You reflect on the day's chaos, the runaway donkey, the smudged kohl, the honey mask, the torn sleeve, and the necklace in the soup. Being a queen is harder than ruling an empire, you muse, a smile tugging at your lips. You've always known beauty is power in Egypt. A queen must look divine to command respect, to be seen as a living goddess. but today reminded you that even goddesses have their clumsy moments. Your servants giggle at the memory of the donkey, and you join them, your laughter echoing over the Nile. For a moment, you're not just a queen, you're a woman laughing at the absurdity of it all. Back in your chamber, you prepare for bed, the day's chaos finally behind you. Eris helps you remove your headdress, its weight a relief to shed, and Charmian brings a basin of water to wash the last traces of kohl and ochre from your face. You slip into a simple linen nightgown, the fabric soft against your skin, and lie down on your golden bed, Bastet the cat curling up beside you with a contented purr. You reflect on the banquet. The Raymonds were impressed. Your alliance is secure, and despite the mishaps, you looked every bit the queen they expected. But you can't help chuckling at the memory of the donkey, the honey, and the sip-soap necklace. Even a goddess has her off days, you murmur to Bastet, who yawns in agreement. The palace is quiet now, except for the distant lapping of the Nile and the soft hum of crickets. As you close your eyes, the day's events fade into the background, replaced by dreams of beauty, power, and the gentle flow of the river. Another day as Cleopatra is done, and you've survived, mishaps and all. And so a day in the life of Cleopatra comes to a close, leaving behind a legacy of beauty, charm, and a few hilarious mishaps in the heart of ancient Egypt. If you're still awake after this 90-minute journey, I hope you've enjoyed these royal antics. If you're drifting off, let the Nile's gentle flow carry you to dreamland. Thanks for joining me. Like, subscribe, and now off to dreamland and comment with your thoughts, or what historical tale you'd like to hear next. Until then, sleep well, and may your dreams be as golden as Cleopatra's headdress. Welcome to another soothing journey through history. Tonight, we're stepping into the sun-baked, dusty world of ancient Egypt, around 2500 BC, a land of pharaohs, pyramids, and the forgotten art of bread-making, a daily task that fed both workers and gods. Imagine spending your day grinding grain, kneading dough, and baking under the scorching sun, all while trying not to get sand in your bread or accidentally offend a visiting queen. Over the next, we'll follow a baker named Kedi through his long, flour-dusted day, joined by a surprising visitor, none other than the great Queen Hatshepsut herself. If you're ready to trade your modern comforts for a peek into this ancient craft, settle in, dim the lights, and maybe turn on a fan for that soft hum. Oh, and if you enjoy this journey, give the video a like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from. Now, let's meet our way into the past. It's just before dawn, in the year 2500 BC, and you're Kedi, a baker living in a small village along the Nile River, not far from the bustling city of Thebes. You wake to the sound of a rooster crowing and the gentle lapping of the Nile against the riverbank, a signal that another long day of bread-making is about to begin. Your house is a simple mud brick hut with a flat roof, where you slept to escape the heat. The air is already warm, even at this early hour, and the sand under your reed mat has left a gritty imprint on your back. You groan, scratching at a mosquito bite, and mutter to yourself, "Another day of grinding grain. May the gods give me strength and fewer bugs." You roll off the mat, your bare feet hitting the cool dirt floor, and splash your face with water from a clay jug. Breakfast is a simple affair. A piece of yesterday's bread, slightly stale but still edible, and a handful of dates, which you eat while shooing away a cat that's chasing a mouse around your tiny room. You pull on your white linen kilt, the only piece of clothing you own, and grab your grinding stone and basket of emmer wheat. You're a baker for the workers building the Great Pyramids, and bread is your life. Literally, it's not just food, It's the payment you'll give to the laborers, a currency of sustenance in this land of pharaohs. As you step outside, the sun is just rising over the Nile, painting the sky a fiery red. You head to the communal bakery, ready to start your day. You arrive at the communal bakery, a simple, open-air structure with a thatched roof to shield you from the sun. The air smells of dust, grain, and the faint tang of the Nile. Other bakers are already there, chatting about the latest gossip, something about a crocodile stealing a fisherman's catch. And you join them, setting up your grinding stone. Your first task of the day is to grind emmer wheat into flour, a back-breaking job that'll take hours. You kneel on a reed mat, place a handful of grain on the stone, and start grinding with a smaller stone. Your arms moving back and forth in a steady rhythm. The work is exhausting, and sweat drips down your forehead, stinging your eyes. The sun is rising higher now, and the heat is relentless. You're starting to feel like a loaf of bread baking in the oven. To make matters worse, a gust of wind blows a pile of sand into your grain basket, and you groan, muttering, "Oh, great! Now I'm making sand bread. Perfect for the pharaoh's feast." You try to sift out the sand, but it's a losing battle. Every baker in Egypt knows that a little grit in the bread is just part of life. Your friend Amun laughs at your plight, saying, "Maybe the workers will think it's extra crunchy." You roll your eyes but can't help chuckling as you get back to grinding. The grain is tough, and your hands ache after the first hour. But you keep going. You need to grind enough flour for 200 loaves today, enough to feed the workers building the nearby pyramid. Bread isn't just food in ancient Egypt, it's currency. The workers are paid in bread and beer, and if you don't produce enough, you'll have a mob of hungry laborers banging on your door. So you grind and grind, your arms burning, your back aching, and your patience wearing thin. By late morning, you've finally ground enough flour for the day's baking. Your arms feel like they're made of papyrus, but there's no time to rest. You need to start kneading the dough. You dump the flour into a large wooden bowl, add water from a clay jar, and a pinch of salt from a sack. The Nile water is a bit murky, but you've learned not to think too hard about what's in it. You mix the ingredients with your hands, the dough sticking to your fingers like a clingy child. By the gods, why does it always stick like this? You grumble, trying to scrape the gooey mess off your hands. Amun, who's kneading his own dough nearby, laughs at your struggle. "You look like you're wrestling a crocodile, Keti," he teases, holding up his own perfectly formed dough ball with a smug grin. You glare at him, but can't help laughing as you flick a bit of dough at him. It lands on his kilt with a satisfying splat, and he yelps, "You'll pay for that." The two of you share a chuckle, the kind of camaraderie that makes long days bearable. But the dough isn't done with you yet. It's too sticky, so you add more flour, only to realize you've added too much, and now it's crumbling like sand. You sigh, starting over, muttering to yourself, "If I wanted to make sand bread, I'd just bake the desert." Kneading takes time, and your hands are covered in dough by the end of it. You finally get the consistency right, soft but firm, perfect for shaping into loaves. You divide the dough into small rounds, your fingers moving quickly despite the ache, and set them aside to rise under a cloth. The sun is high now, and the heat is unbearable, but you're one step closer to baking, a small victory in a day full of floury chaos. With the dough ready, it's time to bake. You head to the clay oven, a dome-shaped structure made of mud and straw, already glowing with heat from the fire inside. You stoke the fire with dried palm fronds, the flames leaping up with a crackle, and the heat hits you like a slap from Ra himself. "By the gods, I'm baking myself along with the bread," you mutter, wiping sweat from your brow. You shape the dough into flat, round loaves, placing them on a wooden paddle to slide into the oven. But baking is a tricky business. The oven is too hot, and the first loaf comes out burnt to a crisp, looking more like a lump of charcoal than bread. You groan, tossing it aside. Maybe the village dogs will eat it. You try again, this time lowering the heat. But now the loaf is undercooked, a doughy mess that sticks to the paddle. A moon peeks over and laughs. At this rate, Ketty, you'll be feeding the crocodiles, not the workers. You roll your eyes, but his teasing gives you an idea. You shape the next loaf into a crocodile's head, just for fun, and it bakes perfectly, earning a grin from Amun. As you pull the crocodile loaf out, a village child sneaks up and grabs it, gunning off with a giggle. You shout after him, "That's for the workers, you little thief!" But he's already gone, leaving you to laugh despite yourself. You keep baking, finally getting the hang of the oven's temperamental heat, and soon you have a pile of golden loaves ready for the workers. As you're stacking the freshly baked loaves, a commotion erupts outside the bakery. You peek out and nearly drop your paddle. Queen Hatshepsut herself is approaching, surrounded by her entourage of guards and scribes. Hatshepsut, one of Egypt's greatest female pharaohs, is inspecting the villages supplying the pyramid workers. And today, she's chosen your bakery. Her golden headdress gleams in the sun, and her blue kilt is adorned with symbols of power, making her look like a goddess descended to earth. You bow low, your heart racing. Hatshepsut is known for her strict standards, and a bad impression could cost you your livelihood. "Greetings, great queen, daughter of Amun-Ra," you stammer, trying to sound respectful while sweating buckets. She nods, her expression stern, and begins inspecting your loaves. "These are for the workers building my father's pyramid?" she asks, her voice sharp. You nod, holding up a loaf, but in your nervousness, you drop it right into the sand. "Oh no, not again," you mutter, earning a raised eyebrow from Hatshepsut. Amun whispers, "Nice one, Ketty. Now she'll feed us to the crocodiles." But to your surprise, Hatshepsut smiles faintly. "Sand in the bread is a small price for honest work," she says, picking up another loaf. "Keep feeding my workers well, and the gods will bless you." She leaves with her entourage, and you collapse in relief, muttering, "I'll take sand over crocodiles any day." With the bread baked, it's time to deliver it to the pyramid workers. You load the loaves into a large basket, balancing it on your head, and set off toward the construction site, a massive pyramid rising against the horizon, a monument to Pharaoh Khufu. The journey is short, but grueling under the midday sun, and by the time you arrive, your kilt is soaked with sweat, and you're dreaming of a dip in the Nile. The workers are hauling massive limestone blocks, their chants echoing across the site. They're a rough bunch, covered in dust and sweat, but they grin when they see you coming. "Ketty's here with the bread," one shouts, and soon you're surrounded by hungry laborers. You hand out the loaves, each one a payment for their day's work. Bread and beer are the currency of the pyramid builders. One worker, a burly man named Ta, tries to trade his loaf for an extra jug of beer, winking at you. "Come on, Ketty, I hauled 20 stones today. Give me a break." You laugh, shaking your head. "You'll eat the bread and thank me for it." "Pa, beer doesn't build pyramids." The workers devour the bread, some breaking off pieces to share with their friends. You notice a few grimaces, probably from the sand, but no one complains too loudly. They're grateful for the food, and you feel a small swell of pride knowing your bread keeps them going. As you hand out the last loaf, you sit down for a moment, watching the pyramid rise, stone by stone, a testament to the power of Egypt and the power of bread. As you return to the bakery, you take a moment to reflect on the importance of bread in ancient Egypt. Bread isn't just food here, it's life itself. It's the staple of every meal, from the humblest farmer to the mightiest pharaoh. It's so essential that it's even used as payment for workers, a kind of edible currency that keeps the entire kingdom running. You've heard that the workers building the pyramids eat up to 10 loaves a day, along with onions, garlic, and beer, a diet that keeps them strong for their grueling labor. But bread is also sacred. In temples, priests offer loaves to the gods, placing them on altars alongside honey, fruit, and wine. You've seen this yourself at the local temple of Osiris, where the priests bake special loaves shaped like the ankh, the symbol of life, to honor the god of the afterlife. Bread is a gift to the gods, a way to ensure their favor for the harvest, the Nile's flood, and the prosperity of the land. Even in the afterlife, bread matters. Tombs are stocked with loaves to feed the dead on their journey to the field of reeds. For you, bread is more personal. It's the smell of flour on your hands, the ache in your arms, the satisfaction of feeding your village. It's a craft passed down through generations, a forgotten art that keeps Egypt alive. You may never see the inside of a pharaoh's palace, but your bread helps build their eternal monuments, and that's a legacy you can be proud of. As the sun sets, you finish your work and join the village for an evening celebration, a small feast to honor the Nile's annual flood, which will soon bring fertile silt to the fields. The villagers gather by the riverbank, their laughter echoing over the water. You bring a basket of extra loaves, sharing them with your neighbors, who greet you with cheers. "Keti's bread, better than the pharaoh's feast," one woman jokes, and you laugh, handing her a loaf. The feast is simple, but joyful. There's bread, of course, along with roasted fish, dates, and jars of beer, brewed by the village women. A child plays a harp, the notes floating over the crowd, while Amen tries to dance, his movements so clumsy that he nearly falls into the Nile. "Stick to baking, Amen," you tease, and he throws a date at you, missing by a mile. The villagers laugh, and for a moment, the hardships of the day, the heat, the sand, the burnt loaves, fade away. You sit by the water, sipping beer and watching the stars emerge, feeling a rare sense of peace. Hatshepsut's visit still lingers in your mind, a reminder of the power that rules this land. But here, by the Nile, with your village around you, you're reminded of what truly matters: the bread you bake, the people you feed, the life you share. It's a small, quiet victory in a world of pharaohs and pyramids. After the feast, you linger by the Nile, the cool night air, a welcome relief after the day's heat. The village is quiet now, except for the gentle lapping of the river and the distant croak of frogs. You sit on the bank, a leftover loaf of bread beside you, and reflect on the day. It's been a long one, grinding grain, kneading dough, baking under the relentless sun, and surviving a visit from Queen Hatshepsut herself. Your hands are calloused, your back aches, and there's still flour in your hair, but you fed the workers, pleased the queen, and celebrated with your village. You glance at the loaf beside you, and a crocodile pokes its head out of the water, eyeing it hungrily. "Not for you, my friend," you mutter, moving the loaf closer and chuckling to yourself. The Nile glitters under the stars, a reminder of the life it brings to this land and the life your bread sustains. You're just a baker, a small part of Egypt's vast machine, but your work matters. The pyramids will rise, the gods will be honored, and the people will eat, all because of the forgotten art you practice every day. You lie back on the cool sand, closing your eyes as the sounds of the Nile lull you to sleep. Another day as an ancient Egyptian baker is done, and you've survived to do it all again tomorrow. And so, a day in the life of an ancient Egyptian baker comes to a close, leaving behind a legacy of flour, sweat, and sustenance in the land of the pharaohs. If you're still awake after this 90-minute journey, I hope you've learned a bit about this forgotten art. If you're drifting off, let the Nile's gentle flow carry you to dreamland. Thanks for joining me. Like, subscribe, and comment with your thoughts or what historical tale you'd like to hear next. Until then, sleep well, and may your dreams be as warm as a freshly baked loaf of Egyptian bread. Welcome to another soothing journey through history. Tonight, we're stepping into the quiet, candlelit world of a medieval scriptorium in the 12th century. A place of endless quills, parchment, and the slow, steady work of a scribe named Brother Edric. Imagine spending your day hunched over a desk, copying ancient texts by hand, with nothing but the flicker of a candle and the occasional squeak of a mouse to keep you company. We'll follow Edric through his surprisingly dull yet oddly fascinating day, exploring the art of medieval bookmaking, the challenges of monastic life, and the quiet legacy of those who preserved knowledge in a dark age. If you're ready to trade your modern comforts for a peek into this ancient routine, settle in, dim the lights, and maybe turn on a fan for that soft hum. Oh, and if you enjoy this journey, give the video a like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from. Now, let's turn the page and step into the past. It's just before dawn in the year 1150, and your brother Edric, a monk and scribe living in a Benedictine monastery in northern England. You wake to the sound of the morning bell, its deep clang echoing through the stone corridors of the monastery, a signal for the first prayers of the day. Lauds. Your cell is a tiny room, barely big enough for a straw bed, a wooden stool, and a small table. The walls are cold stone, and the air is so chilly you can see your breath, like tiny clouds in the dim light filtering through a narrow window. Your bed is a simple straw mat covered with a scratchy wool blanket, and let's just say the fleas have decided you're their personal buffet. You roll out of bed, your joints creaking from the cold, and kneel on the icy floor to say a quick prayer. Give me strength for another day of quills and parchment, you mutter, hoping for a miracle to make the scriptorium a little warmer today. You pull on your gray monastic robe, the rough wool itching against your skin, and slip into a pair of worn leather sandals. Breakfast isn't a thing yet. Monks like you eat only twice a day, and the first meal won't come until after morning prayers. Your stomach grumbles, but you ignore it. Grabbing your rosary beads and heading out into the cloister, the monastery is quiet except for the shuffle of other monks' sandals as they make their way to the chapel. The air smells of damp stone, candle wax, and the faint whiff of yesterday's barley soup. You pass the herb garden, where Brother Thomas is already tending to the rosemary and lavender, his breath visible in the frosty morning. The chapel is dimly lit with flickering candles, and you join the other monks in chanting psalms, your voice blending with theirs in a low, rhythmic hum. It's a moment of peace before the long day ahead, a day of copying manuscripts in the scriptorium where your real work begins. After morning prayers, you head to the refectory for a simple meal. A bowl of barley porridge and a piece of coarse bread, washed down with watered-down ale. It's not exactly a feast, but it fills your stomach enough to face the day. You make your way to the scriptorium, a small room in the monastery where the monks copy manuscripts. The scriptorium is a quiet, cold space, with stone walls and narrow windows that let in just enough light to see your work. Wooden desks are lined up in rows, each one holding a slanted writing surface, an ink pot, a quill, and a pile of parchment. You settle at your desk, your breath visible in the chilly air. Your task today is to copy a Latin translation of Aristotle's Physics, a book the abbot wants for the monastery library. First, you need to prepare your tools. You pick up a goose feather quill, carefully trimming the tip with a small knife to create a sharp nib. Too sharp, and it'll tear the parchment. Too blunt, and your letters will look like a child's scribbles. You mix ink in a small pot, grinding a lump of black pigment with water and a bit of gum arabic to make it stick. You dip your quill, but in your sleepy haze you knock the ink pot over, sending a black puddle across the desk. You mutter a prayer for patience as you mop it up with a rag, hoping the abbot doesn't notice the stain on your sleeve. Next, you prepare the parchment, which is made from sheepskin, stretched, scraped, and dried until it's smooth. It's expensive stuff, and every sheet is precious, so you can't afford to make mistakes. You rule the page with faint lines using a lead stylus, creating a grid to keep your writing neat. The parchment smells faintly of animal hide, and you notice a small tear in the corner, probably from a clumsy novice. You sigh, knowing you'll have to work around it. Finally, you light a small candle for extra light. Its flame flickering in the drafty room. You're ready to start copying, but the real challenge is just beginning. With your tools ready, you begin the slow, painstaking work of copying Aristotle's Physics. The original manuscript sits on a stand beside you, its pages worn and faded from years of use. You dip your quill in ink and start writing, carefully forming each letter in a neat, rounded script called Carolingian minuscule, a style designed to be clear and readable. Each stroke of the quill is deliberate, the scratch of the nib against parchment, the only sound in the quiet scriptorium, aside from the occasional cough of another monk or the squeak of a mouse scurrying across the floor. The work is tedious, to say the least. You're copying word for word, line by line, page by page, and there's no room for error. If you make a mistake, you can't just cross it out. Parchment is too precious for that. Instead, you have to scrape the ink off with a knife, which leaves a rough spot that might tear if you're not careful. Your hand cramps after the first hour, and your back aches from hunching over the desk. The candlelight flickers, making your eyes strain, and you have to squint to read the faded text of the original. Every so often, you pause to stretch your fingers, muttering a prayer for patience as a mouse steals a crumb from your desk. You glare at it, but it's too quick for you to catch. The monotony is mind-numbing. You've been copying the same passage for hours, and you're only halfway through the page. Your mind starts to wander. Maybe you should have joined the monks in the herb garden instead. But a sharp reprimand from Brother Anselm, the head scribe, snaps you back to focus. Adric, stop daydreaming. The abbot wants this done by Vespers. You nod, dipping your quill again, and keep going. It's not glamorous work, but it's important. Books are rare and precious in the Middle Ages, and your copies help preserve knowledge for future generations. As the morning drags on, the challenges of scriptorian work become painfully clear. The cold is a constant enemy. The scriptorium is unheated, and your fingers are numb from the chill. You blow on them to keep them warm, but it doesn't help much. The candle you're using for light keeps dripping wax onto the desk, and once a drop lands on your parchment, smudging a letter you just wrote. You groan, scraping it off with your knife, but the spot looks uneven now, and you know Brother Anselm will notice. Sure enough, he glances over from his desk and snaps, "Edric, if you ruin that page, you'll be saying extra prayers tonight." You mutter an apology, but inside, you're wondering if copying books is worth all this trouble. Then, there's the ink. It's a finicky mixture. And if you don't get the consistency just right, it either clumps on the quill or spreads too thin, making your letters look like spider webs. You've already had to remake the ink twice today because it keeps drying out in the cold air. And don't even get started on the quills. They wear out quickly, and you have to stop every hour to trim a new one. Once, you trim it too sharply and end up tearing the parchment, leaving a small hole in the middle of a sentence. You sigh, knowing you'll have to stitch it up later with a needle and thread, a tedious task that'll take up the rest of your morning. Monastic life adds its own challenges. Silence is the rule in the scriptorium. No talking, no humming, just the scratch of quills and the occasional cough. It's meant to keep you focused, but it also makes the day feel endless. You're not even allowed to leave for a break unless it's time for prayers or meals. Your stomach grumbles as you think of the midday meal, more bread and a bowl of watery vegetable stew, but that's still hours away. For now, you're stuck at your desk, copying line after line with only the mice for company. Finally, the bell rings for sext, the midday prayer, signaling a break from your work. You set down your quill, stretch your cramped fingers, and join the other monks in the chapel for a brief service. After prayers, you head to the refectory for lunch, a simple meal of barley bread, a bowl of vegetable stew made with turnips and leeks, and a small cup of ale. The stew is lukewarm and a bit bland, but after hours of copying, it tastes like a feast. You sit at a long wooden table, with the other monks eating in silence as one of them reads a passage from the Bible aloud, a monastery rule to keep your mind on holy thoughts. Despite the silence, there's a small moment of chaos when Brother Cuthbert, a clumsy novice, accidentally spills his stew across the table. You stifle a laugh as he scrambles to clean it up, earning a stern look from the abbot. For a moment, you feel a sense of camaraderie with your fellow monks. You're all in this together, fleas and all. After the meal, you're allowed a short walk in the cloister, a covered walkway surrounding the monastery's courtyard. The air is crisp, and the herb garden smells of lavender and rosemary, a welcome change from the musty scriptorium. You stretch your legs, feeling the sun on your face, and for a brief moment, the day doesn't feel so endless. But the break is short-lived. The bell rings again, calling you back to the scriptorium. You sigh, knowing you've got another long stretch of copying ahead. As you return to your desk, you notice the mouse from earlier has stolen another crumb. You're starting to think it's mocking you. You dip your quill in ink and get back to work, the scratch of the nib against parchment filling the quiet room once more. As the afternoon sun filters through the scriptorium's narrow windows, you take a moment to appreciate the importance of your work. Books in the Middle Ages are rare and precious. There's no printing press yet, so every book has to be copied by hand. Monasteries like yours are the guardians of knowledge, preserving ancient texts like Aristotle, the Bible, and the writings of early Christian fathers. Without scribes like you, this knowledge would be lost to time, buried under the chaos of the times. The manuscript you are copying, Aristotle's Physics, is part of the monastery's growing library, a collection that will be used by monks, scholars, and even visiting nobles. But copying isn't just about the words, it's an art form. You're not just writing, you're creating a book that might last for centuries. Every so often, you add a decorative touch, like an illuminated initial, a large, ornate letter at the start of a chapter, painted with red and blue ink and a bit of gold leaf. It's a small moment of creativity in an otherwise monotonous day, and you take pride in making the letter as beautiful as you can, even if your hand shakes from the cold. The process of making a book is a labor of love. The parchment comes from sheepskin, prepared by other monks who spend days scraping and stretching the hides. The ink is made from oak galls and iron salts, a recipe that took years to perfect. The quills are plucked from geese, and the gold leaf comes from a merchant in the nearest town, a rare luxury for the monastery. Each book takes months to complete, and a single mistake can ruin weeks of work. But when it's done, it's a thing of beauty, a window into the past, a bridge to the future. You may never see the finished book, but you know your work will live on long after you're gone. By mid-afternoon, the scriptorium feels like a prison. You've been copying for hours, and the monotony is starting to wear you down. Your eyes are tired from squinting at the faded text. Your hand is cramping again, and the cold has settled into your bones. You've lost count of how many times you've written the word philosophia, and you're starting to wonder if Aristotle ever took a break. The silence of the scriptorium is oppressive, broken only by the scratch of quills and the occasional cough from Brother Anselm. You try to stay focused, but distractions keep creeping in. A bird lands on the windowsill, chirping loudly, and you glance up, imagining what it would be like to fly away from this desk. You daydream about the village festival you heard about last week. There'll be music, dancing, maybe even a pie or two. Your stomach grumbles at the thought, and you shake your head, trying to focus. But the candle has burned low, and a puddle of wax has formed on the desk. You must have dozed off for a moment. You jolt upright, hoping Brother Anselm didn't notice, but he's too busy correcting a novice's work to care. The mouse from earlier scurries across the floor again, and you swear it's taunting you now. You toss a crumb at it, but it just grabs the prize and runs off, leaving you to your endless copying. You sigh, dipping your quill in ink, and keep going. The afternoon feels like it'll never end. But you know you have to finish this page before Vespers, the evening prayers, or you'll be stuck here even longer. As the day draws to a close, you finally finish the page you've been working on. It's not perfect. The tear in the parchment made things tricky, and there's a small smudge where your hand slipped, but it's done. You carefully set the page aside to dry, feeling a small sense of accomplishment. You've been working on this manuscript for weeks, and with this page, you're one step closer to completing it. You imagine the finished book on a shelf in the monastery library, where it might be read by scholars, monks, or even a visiting bishop. Scribes like you are the unsung heroes of the Middle Ages, in an era often called the Dark Ages, when wars, plagues, and invasions threaten to erase the knowledge of the past. Monasteries become beacons of learning. The books you copy, texts by Aristotle, Augustine, and the ancient Romans, keep alive the wisdom of antiquity. Without your work, much of this knowledge would be lost forever, buried under the chaos of the times. The manuscripts you create will be passed down for centuries, some even surviving into the modern age, where they'll be studied by historians and marveled at in museums. But your work isn't just about preservation, it's about faith. As a monk, you see copying as a form of prayer, a way to serve God by spreading His word and the wisdom of His creation. Each letter you write is an act of devotion, even if your hand cramps and your eyes ache. You may never leave this monastery, but your manuscripts will travel far beyond its walls, carrying your silent legacy into the future. As the sun sets, the bell rings for Vespers, the evening prayer. You set down your quill, stretch your aching back, and join the other monks in the chapel. The air is warm with the glow of candles, and the familiar chant of psalms fills the space, a soothing rhythm that calms your tired mind. After prayers, you head to the refectory for supper, a simple meal of bread, cheese, and a bowl of lentil soup. The food is plain, but it's filling, and you savor every bite, grateful for the warmth in your belly after a long day. Back in your cell, you light a small candle and kneel for a final prayer, thanking God for the strength to get through another day. You reflect on the pages you copied, the mistakes you made, and the small victories, like the illuminated letter you're particularly proud of. Your hands are stained with ink, your back aches, and your eyes are heavy, but there's a quiet satisfaction in knowing you've done your part to preserve knowledge and serve your faith. You blow out the candle and lie down on your straw mat, the fleas greeting you like old friends. The monastery is silent now, except for the distant hoot of an owl and the faint creak of the wooden roof. As you drift off, the day's work fades into the background, replaced by dreams of parchment, quills, and the endless scratch of writing. Another day as a medieval scribe is done, and you've survived to do it all again tomorrow. And so, a day in the life of a medieval scribe comes to a close, leaving behind a legacy of ink, parchment, and quiet devotion in the heart of a dark age. If you're still awake after this 90-minute journey, I hope you've learned a bit about this ancient craft. If you're drifting off, let the scratch of quills carry you to dreamland. Thanks for joining me. Like, subscribe, and comment with your thoughts or what historical tale you'd like to hear next. Until then, sleep well, and may your dreams be as peaceful as a monk's prayer. Welcome to another soothing journey through history. Tonight, we're stepping into the steamy, bustling world of a Roman bathhouse in the 2nd century AD, a place of relaxation, gossip, and luxury for the citizens of Rome, but a sweaty, exhausting workplace for the unsung workers who keep it running. Imagine spending your day scrubbing floors, hauling wood, and dodging grumpy senators, all while trying not to slip on a wet tile. Over the next 90 minutes, we'll follow a worker named Lucius through his long, tiring day, exploring the culture of Roman bathing and the hidden struggles behind the marble walls. If you're ready to trade your modern comforts for a peek into this ancient routine, settle in, dim the lights, and maybe turn on a fan for that soft hum. Oh, and if you enjoy this journey, give the video a like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from. Now, let's splash into the past. It's just before dawn in the bustling city of Rome, around 150 AD, and you're a bathhouse worker named Lucius. You live in a cramped tenement apartment, a tiny room in a multi-story building that smells like sweat, smoke, and yesterday's fish stew. Your bed is a straw mat on the floor, and let's just say the fleas have decided you're their best friend. No alarm clocks here, just the distant crow of a rooster, and the shouts of early risers in the street below. You roll over, groaning, because you know what's coming. Another long day at the Thermae, one of the grand public bathhouses of Rome. You stumble out of bed, your bare feet hitting the cold dirt floor, because floors and tenements aren't exactly fancy. The air is chilly, and you shiver as you splash your face with water from a clay jug, hoping it's not too full of whatever the upstairs neighbors tossed out their window last night. Breakfast is a simple affair, a stale chunk of bread and a few olives, which you eat while shooing away a rat that's eyeing your meal like it's a 5-star feast. You pull on your tunic, a rough linen thing that's seen better days, and a pair of worn sandals. You're not winning any fashion awards, but at least you're not barefoot in a city where the streets are a mix of mud, horse dung, and mystery liquids. As you step outside, the city is already waking up. Bakers are shouting about their fresh bread, merchants are hauling carts to the market, and a group of kids runs by chasing a stray dog. You weave through the narrow, crowded streets toward the bathhouse, a massive building with marble columns and steam rising from its roof. It's the Baths of Trajan, a sprawling complex that can hold thousands of bathers at once, a place of relaxation for the wealthy, but for you, it's just another day of scrubbing, hauling, and sweating. You arrive at the bathhouse just as the first rays of sunlight hit the marble columns. The Thermae is already buzzing with activity. Other workers are rushing around, and the head overseer, a grumpy man named Gaius, is barking orders like he's commanding an army. Your first task of the day is to keep the fires burning in the hypocaust system, the underfloor heating that makes the bathhouse so luxurious. Underneath the floors are a maze of tunnels where fires heat the air, warming the rooms above and the water in the pools. It's a genius system, but it's also a sweaty, smoky nightmare to maintain. You head down to the furnace room, a dark, hot space that smells like charcoal and sweat. The air is thick with smoke, and you can barely see through the haze. Chimneys aren't exactly a thing yet, so the smoke just lingers like an unwanted guest. You grab a bundle of wood from the pile, your arms aching already, and toss it into the roaring fire. The flames leap up, and you shield your face from the heat, wondering if you'll ever get used to feeling like a roast pig. Another worker, a skinny teenager named Titus, drops a log on his foot and hops around, cursing in a way that would make a sailor blush. You can't help but chuckle. Misery loves company after all. Keeping the fires going is a never-ending task. The bathhouse has to stay warm all day, from the frigidarium, the cold room, to the caldarium, the hot room. And if the fires die down, the bathers will complain, loudly. You spend hours hauling wood, stoking the flames, and sweeping ash, all while trying not to pass out from the heat. Gaius pokes his head in every so often, shouting, "Faster, Lucius, the senators are coming at noon. And they'll have my head, if the water's not scalding." You mutter under your breath that he's welcome to stoke the fires himself, but you keep working. After all, you need this job. Your wages, a few bronze coins a day, are just enough to keep you fed and housed. By mid-morning, the fires are roaring, and the bathhouse is ready for its first wave of visitors, but before the doors open, you've got another job, cleaning. The bathhouse is a marvel of engineering, marble floors, mosaic walls, and steaming pools, but it's also a mess. Last night's bathers left behind a trail of oil, food scraps, and who knows what else. You grab a wooden bucket and a stiff brush, muttering to yourself that this is the least glamorous job in Rome. You start in the caldarium, the hottest room, where the steam is so thick you can barely see your own hands. The floor is slick with olive oil. Romans use it to clean themselves, scraping it off with a curved tool called a strigil, but they're not exactly tidy about it. You scrub the tiles, your knees aching, while sweat drips down your face. Just as you're making progress, a wealthy Roman named Senator Flavius bursts in, wrapped in a toga, and immediately slips on the wet floor, dropping his oil flask with a crash. He glares at you like it's your fault, and you mumble an apology while trying not to laugh. Senators. They expect the world to revolve around them, even when they're sprawled on the floor. Next, you move to the frigidarium, the cold pool room, which is a relief after the heat of the caldarium. But the water is murky, full of floating leaves and bits of bread. Someone must have snuck in a snack last night. You scoop out the debris with a net, shivering as the cold water splashes your arms. Gaius yells from the doorway, "Hurry up, Lucius, the bathers are arriving." You sigh, wondering if Gaius has ever scrubbed a floor in his life. Cleaning isn't just about looks. It's about keeping the bathhouse running. If the pools get too dirty, diseases like dysentery can spread, and nobody wants to be known as the bathhouse that gave half the city a stomachache. By noon, the bathhouse is packed. Merchants, soldiers, senators, and even a few wealthy women fill the rooms, their voices echoing off the marble walls. The bathhouse isn't just a place to get clean. It's the social hub of Rome. People come to relax, gossip, and make deals, all while soaking in the warm water or sweating in the steam rooms. For you, though, it's the busiest part of the day. Your job now is to serve the bathers, running back and forth with trays of olive oil, strigils, and jugs of water. Senator Flavius, still grumpy from this fall, demands hotter water in the caldarium. So, you rush to tell the furnace workers to stoke the fires even more. A merchant named Marcus wants a massage. But the masseur is busy, so you have to fetch more oil from the storage room, dodging bathers who are slipping on the wet floors like it's an Olympic sport. You hear snippets of gossip as you move through the rooms. "Did you hear Senator Flavius lost a fortune betting on the chariot races?" one woman whispers. "I heard he's bribing the governor to get it back," her friend replies. You smirk to yourself. Bathhouses are better than taverns for the juiciest rumors. But serving bathers isn't all fun and gossip. Some of them treat you like you're invisible, tossing their dirty towels at you, without a word. Others are outright rude, like the young patrician who snaps his fingers and calls you boy, even though you're probably older than him. You grit your teeth and keep going, because a single complaint to Gaius could cost you your job. By the time the afternoon rolls around, your tunic is soaked with sweat and water, your feet ache, and you're dreaming of a quiet moment to eat your lunch, a dry piece of bread and some watered-down wine. As the day stretches into late afternoon, you take a rare moment to catch your breath and watch the bathers. Bathhouses, like the baths of Trajan, aren't just about getting clean. They're the heart of Roman social life. For a few bronze coins, anyone can enter, from wealthy senators to humble shopkeepers. It's one of the few places where social classes mix, though the rich still get the best spots in the caldarium. The bathing process is a ritual. First, bathers head to the apoditerium, the changing room, to strip off their clothes and leave them on stone benches. You've seen more than one bather forget where they parked their toga, wandering around in a towel, looking confused. Then they move to the tepidarium, the warm room, to ease into the heat before diving into the caldarium for a hot soak. They rub olive oil on their skin, then scrape it off with a strigil, leaving behind dirt, sweat, and oil, which you'll have to clean up later. Finally, they cool off in the frigidarium, splashing in the cold pool and chatting about politics. Gladiator fights were the latest scandal. Bathhouses are also a place for leisure. Some bathers play dice or board games. Others read scrolls. Yes, Romans bring books to the bath, because why not? Wealthy patrons might get a massage or a haircut right there in the bathhouse, while others just gossip about who's sleeping with whom. It's like a modern gym, spa, and coffee shop all rolled into one, but with more nudity and fewer cappuccinos. For you, though, it's just another reminder of how much work goes into keeping this place running. The bathhouse is a marvel of engineering. Aqueducts bring in fresh water. The hypocaust system keeps everything warm, but it's your sweat that makes it all possible. As you take a break to eat your lunch, a dry piece of bread, and watered-down wine, you can't help but marvel at the engineering behind the bathhouse. The baths of Trajan are a testament to Roman ingenuity, a sprawling complex that's as much a feat of technology as it is a place of relaxation. Let's take a step back and look at how this all works, because it's pretty impressive, even if it means more work for you. The first challenge is water. Rome's bathhouses use millions of liters a day, and that water comes from aqueducts, massive stone channels that stretch for miles, bringing fresh water from springs in the hills to the city. The aqueducts are engineering marvels, sloping just enough to keep the water flowing without pumps. At the bathhouse, the water is channeled into cisterns, then distributed to the pools through a network of lead pipes. You've heard stories of workers getting sick from the lead, but nobody seems to care, as long as the water keeps flowing. Then there's the hypocaust system, the underfloor heating that keeps the bathhouse warm. Fires burn beneath the floors, heating the air in a maze of tunnels, which in turn heats the rooms above. The floors are raised on small pillars, called pilae, to create space for the hot air to circulate. It's a brilliant system, but it's also a pain to maintain. You've spent half your day hauling wood to keep those fires going. And the smoke is so thick, you're starting to think you might be part chimney by now. The hot water for the pools is heated in massive bronze boilers, fueled by the same fires, and piped into the caldarium for bathers to enjoy. The bathhouse is a marvel, but it's also a reminder of the divide between you and the bathers. They get to enjoy the luxury of hot water and warm floors, while you're stuck in the smoky underbelly, making sure it all works. Still, there's a small sense of pride in knowing you're part of something so grand, even if you'd rather be soaking in the pools than cleaning them. As the afternoon turns into evening, the bathhouse becomes a hotbed of politics and intrigue. The thermae isn't just a place to bathe. It's where deals are made, alliances are formed, and secrets are whispered over the sound of splashing water. You've learned to keep your ears open while you work, because the bathhouse gossip is often more valuable than your wages. In the tepidarium you spot two senators, Flavius and his rival Senator Decimus, sitting close together, their voices low. They're wrapped in togas, but their faces are tense as they whisper about a plot to undermine the governor. If we bribe the right people, he'll be out by next month, Flavius mutters, glancing around to make sure no one's listening. Decimus nods, adding, and we'll make sure our man takes his place. You pretend not to hear as you carry a jug of water past them, but you can't help smirking. Politics in Rome is dirtier than the frigidarium pool after a busy day. The bathhouse is a perfect place for scheming. It's one of the few places where senators, merchants, and even soldiers can meet without drawing suspicion. The steam and noise provide a natural cover for whispered conversations, and the relaxed atmosphere makes people let their guard down. You've heard all sorts of secrets over the years, bribes, affairs, even whispers of rebellion against the emperor. Not that you'd ever tell anyone. Gaius would have your head if you got caught spreading rumors. But it's hard not to listen when the stakes are so high. Sometimes the intrigue spills over into your work. A centurion might demand you fetch him a strigil faster so he can overhear a rival's conversation. Or a merchant might slip you a coin to accidentally spill water on someone he doesn't like. You've learned to navigate these situations carefully. After all, you're just a worker, and getting caught in the middle of a political plot could land you in serious trouble. For now, you keep your head down and your ears open, wondering what other secrets the bathhouse will reveal before the day is done. As the sun begins to set, the bathhouse enters its busiest time, the evening rush. This is when the workers who've been toiling all day come to unwind, along with a rowdier crowd looking to drink and socialize. The air is thick with steam and the smell of wine, and the noise level is deafening. Laughter, shouting, and a splash of water echo off the marble walls. You're running on fumes now, but there's no time to rest. A group of drunken merchants has taken over the caldarium, singing off-key and spilling wine everywhere. You rush over with a tray of towels, trying to clean up the mess before Gaius notices. But one of them grabs your arm and slurs, "More wine, boy, and make it quick." You politely explain that you're not a waiter, but he's too drunk to care, so you fetch a jug of wine just to keep the peace. As you turn to leave, another bather, a soldier fresh from the frontier, accidentally knocks the jug out of your hands and it shatters on the floor. The merchants laugh, but Gaius glares at you from across the room, and you know you'll be paying for that jug out of your wages. The evening rush brings other challenges too. A pipe in the frigidarium springs a leak, flooding the floor, and you have to wade through cold water to fix it, all while bathers complain that their feet are getting wet. A fight breaks out in the tepidarium between two men arguing over a dice game, and you have to call the guards to break it up before they start throwing strigils. By the time the crowd starts to thin out, you're soaked, exhausted, and ready to collapse. But there's a small sense of satisfaction in surviving the chaos. Another day at the bathhouse, and you're still standing. By late evening, the bathhouse finally empties out. The last bathers leave, wrapped in their togas, their voices fading as they head to the taverns for a late dinner. You're exhausted, your arms ache from hauling wood, your knees are sore from scrubbing, and your tunic is a damp mess. But there's a deep sense of relief as the chaos of the day gives way to quiet. You do a final sweep of the bathhouse, picking up stray sandals and wiping down the benches. Gaius counts the day's earnings, muttering to himself about how Senator Flavius tipped less than usual. He tosses you a few bronze coins, your wages for the day, and grumbles, "Good work, Lucius, don't be late tomorrow." You nod, too tired to reply, and head out into the cool evening air. The streets of Rome are quieter now, lit by flickering torches, and the smell of fresh bread wafts from a nearby bakery. You stop to buy a loaf with your earnings, savoring the warm crust as you walk home. Back in your tiny tenement room, you collapse onto your straw mat, the fleas greeting you like old friends. You're too tired to care. As you drift off, the sounds of the city, distant laughter, a barking dog, the clatter of a cart, fade into the background. You reflect on the day, the back-breaking work, the endless demands, the snippets of gossip that remind you Rome is a city of power and secrets. The bathhouse is a place of luxury for some, but for you, it's a place of survival. Still, there's a strange pride in knowing you helped keep this grand machine running, even if you'll never soak in its waters yourself. Another day at the bathhouse is done, and you've survived to do it all again tomorrow. And so, a day in the life of a Roman bathhouse worker comes to a close, leaving behind a legacy of sweat, steam, and survival in the heart of ancient Rome. If you're still awake after this 90-minute journey, I hope you've learned a bit about this ancient routine. If you're drifting off, let the warm waters of the Thermae carry you to dreamland. Thanks for joining me. Like, subscribe, and comment with your thoughts or what historical tale you'd like to hear next. Until then, sleep well, and may your dreams be as steamy as a Roman bathhouse.